and you work basically from the day you're some form of fashion involved in going to see my dad. Time I would see him was actually when you get to farm. So when I was 5 after school one day, we were unloading in a bin is a storage container. I would call them silos. They're steel, silver normally, or gray. And 30 years ago or so, the bin didn't have, they were concrete box hole in the center. An auger that went through the inside of the bin, and you would turn that auger on and it would unload in this case, soybeans from inside the bin to outside the bin. And when it gets down to the bottom, you've got to check everything in that center hole because it's not a funnel. The beans and corn, so you have to sweep them around the outside. Well, we got down to near the bottom, and so I climbed out, and this auger goes out. It's called an auger. It's actually a giant screw. And if you think of a screw when it has threads, and that's the elevated portion, an auger has extremely large flighting. And if you put it inside and you a material, a granular material, and start to spin that auger inside the screw, it would actually move that up the threads all the way to the end and dump it out the end. So there's a 15-foot auger comes out, then it raises up a few feet, and then dumps into a 60-foot auger that then goes into a wagon or a truck or another bin. And there's a gap in between 4 feet. So I climbed out and was meandering around. I was bored and desperate. I reached under the small auger, and the force of the soybeans pushed my right arm into the flighting of the main auger. Now on the end of the flight, sharp blade, like it's just a it's like where the screw is. If you're a machinist, you take the screw and you sand that down and make that smooth so that you can start a screw into where it's needs to be. And auger, it's just a big flat, almost like a blade. You grab my sleeve, pull my right arm in. I grab my right with my left, pull my left arm in, cut both my ears basically off. My left ear completely off, except for the lobe. My right ear was severed significantly. And my cut within 1/8 of an inch of my eye, about 3 or 4 inches. There was actually a gap right where my eye was. Probably I was squinting at the time. Interesting story, when I was in my 20s, I had a wreck and my sunglasses hit an airbag and actually completed the scar. So it's a continuous line now, almost perfect 4 inches. So that's basically, at that point, the auger wrapped me into it. And it is run by a power takeoff, which is a PTO shaft. A PTO shaft is connected to a tractor, and the tractor has a shaft that comes out of the back, which is connected directly to the motor. There are shear bolts on the PTO shaft that shear whenever there is mass load or too much load, so that you don't rip the inside of the tractor out. The shear bolts gave way, and basically then, instead of consuming me, it just stopped with me wrapped up in it. I started screaming for my dad. And I basically was coherent the entire time, all the way through to the hospital, which I'll get to in a moment. But my dad came out, ran out. I was screaming, "Dad, Dad." He began to, what I remember, disassemble the tractor basically by hand. And he was doing this with his cousin. His cousin ran out of the bin, ran to a house, which I saw him go into the house. And then it was probably 10 minutes or so until the ambulance came down the road. I watched the ambulance come down the road, park, they came out. Meanwhile, I'm basically wrapped up into a pile of beans and, somewhat underneath beans. My face was basically laying on them. So they eventually got me free. And put me in an ambulance, took me to a hospital about 10 minutes away. And that hospital could do nothing for me. So I've actually seen what some people have seen, the lights in a hospital. And I have vividly remembered the lights of the hospital, the nurses over top of you. At that hospital, I'll never forget the face of a nurse. I wish I knew who she was. The Advent horror on her face was absolutely astounding, and I'll never forget that. She didn't mean to, but she was horrified. So they wheeled me back out into the same ambulance, And then I began an hour-plus long drive to another hospital because there wasn't care flight at the time. And during that, I had a nurse and my dad with me. And I sucked on a wash rag full of ice the entire way. And, you know, at times I would say, you know, I don't want to die and things like that to my dad. And I kept asking for mom, and he kept saying mom would be there. But I will say probably some of the things that I remember most, it's an interesting pain. It's a pain that's more of a searing hot. That is really hard to explain. It's not the pain that you would, you know, poke yourself or something like that. It's excruciating heat and a lot of numbness. Your body really reacts very quickly to something so severe. I didn't lose very much blood. My body actually closed off almost all of its blood vessels, which is actually common if you know about amputations and things of that nature. The body can react pretty quickly, actually more so if you do a clean amputation than you do a cut. If you cut somebody's artery or whatnot, they can bleed to death. If you cut it clear off, it actually can, it'll collapse on itself if you know much about medical care. But anyway, so it was a long ride. We get to the next hospital, a much bigger hospital, children's hospital in a bigger city. And it wheeled me back down through the hallway again. And I remember those lights very vividly. And then I saw a nurse and another nurse, and then I was out. So basically, that day at 5 years old, I'd been 5 for about 5-6 months. The trajectory of my life changed. And I was going another path. So I look back on the day and I'm extremely grateful that it occurred, because I believe that it made me who I am, and I like who I am. And that's really important to me. It took me a long time to like who I was. I went through my teenage years as a bitter teenager like most people, but I was extra bitter because I carried a real chip on my shoulder about my situation, considered it the problem I had. And basically any situation, I considered that my vice. But in reality, everyone really goes through, in some form or fashion, a lot of the same things. I just carried a chip and a lot of bitterness and hate and anger during that time. But it did mold and shape me. My parents, I was fortunate enough to have parents that either were told by someone or of their own accord to just let me go. Basically from 5 on, I was well protected, and by no means was I not. But I was let to figure it out on my own in a lot of situations. And I wish more parents did it today, because their kids are basically graduating from high school and don't even have a bounce checkbook. And I was doing bond derivatives by the age of 15, which is my background, which is in finance. So, but I was raised to just figure it out, and that molded and shaped me. I can't say enough about, if you look at a crisis as what it can do for you and how good it can make you as a person, you come out of it on the other side incredibly strong. You've been through a war that other people haven't been. You know, it's not the same as real war, but it's you know, in a lot of ways personal. And that personal war of looking in the mirror every day and seeing your limitations and then figuring out how to overcome them is invaluable to another person, no matter what age they are. And that's what it basically did for me. I mean, I would go to a grocery store not knowing if I could get peanut butter off the shelf. You know, it might be too high, it might be too low. I come from a family of great faith, and so I have quite a bit of faith, and I'm not one for organized religion and things of that nature, although I've attended it most of my life. But that faith really gave me a strong support, because it was an isolating injury. It was a personal injury in a small community. So I basically was independent and on my own most of the time. And so the discrimination is incredible, how you are discriminated against. I can feel for most anyone in that situation. But if you figure out a way to overcome that, and you figure out a way to face that and still become something, and not do it in an arrogant, entitled, prideful way, it's really important and really valuable. So my dad was a competitive shooter when I was young, and that's what I remember when I was 4, 5, and 6, was going to local shooting club, and he shot 22 match and had walls full of trophies and everything else. And but in the 80s, that really died. Almost every small town had a shooting club, and they shot competitively. And that just kind of died in the late 70s and 80s. An entire generation basically let something go. And so, but I remember that, and I vividly remember that. And so he got me my first BB gun, I think when I was 9, and then a pellet gun, then a 22. And then my first high power was a 17 Remington. I was 15. And around here, we raise soybeans and corn, and groundhogs are devastating to our crops. And so my dad was always shooting groundhogs with 22, 250, 17 round, 243 at incredible distances. And he used basically swag, which was scientific wild ass guess. But it wasn't a guess. He was just truly a gifted shooter at extreme distances. It was pretty amazing. And so I always had this admiration for it, and I was just terrible. What I did was I got a Harris bipod from him, a 13 to 26, I think, or 23 and a half to 13. And I would sit up and shoot at 23 and a half on bipods. Now, if you know anything about how unstable that is, it's just about as good as standing in a high wind. It was very difficult to shoot with not a match trigger, standard trigger. I did a video on the 17 Remington. It's still amazing that I even shot the thing compared to what I have now. But I started shooting 100, 200 yards with a 17, which isn't easy in the wind. And I just fell in love with it. Moved away to a big city, became a stockbroker in college. My freshman year in college, I started as an intern. 6 months into being an intern, I was hiring and firing all the interns in the office, and we had 90 at the time. And then I became a stockbroker, moved on to a couple other firms, and lived in a city where I couldn't shoot at all. And I kept all my guns. I didn't have very many, but I had a few in my little apartments. And just had a massive passion for it, but didn't have a lot of access to it. So anyway, my career kind of continued on. I became a business consultant, asset manager, started my own little business, and then had an opportunity to start a food processing plant that was going to have ethanol on the back end come out of it. And it was here near my home where I grew up. So I started traveling to do that. And in doing so, then I bought my first 22 250 and then began to shoot actually again at distance. And I spent basically probably a decade missing the broadside of a barn at 500 and not having any clue why, because there was nobody around. For as much flat ground as we have, it's all farm ground. It's extremely valuable, and farmers don't like to not plant it. And so not very many people actually shoot very far, to be honest. And so anyway, I would stick things out at 400 or 500 and miss. And I remember the first time I bought this a suit of armor that was 5 feet tall. It was made of tin, put it out at 500, probably shot 300 or 400 rounds of every high power we owned and didn't hit it. And then my dad came and just swagged it and hit it right in the chest at like 490 or something. And then I was just defeated even more because he just held over. We didn't even dial. But anyway, so I kept just really got a passion for it, built my own range, put it out to 800, 850, built a wind target, which is a 4x4 steel target, so I could learn wind. And I started to teach myself everything I could and gather information. I went to a few training, a few things with training, shot down in Texas a couple of times. Somebody posted a video, and it didn't go viral, but it went pretty high. And I was like, wow, people were reaching out about how inspired they were by me shooting a couple thousand yards. And so I'm actually an introvert by nature. But I believe that you're put on this earth for a reason, and I've been put on this earth to prove that can't goes to the poorhouse, and there's no such thing. It just cannot not be done, no matter what it is. And we have the capacity in and of ourselves to accomplish incredible feats. But very few of us are ever put in a position where we are forced to do it. Some people do it by choice, but not very often. And some people do it because they want to, but most of the time people that evolve to a place of really just pushing themselves beyond their capability, it's because of attrition, some situation that's put them in there and they can't get out of it. In some ways, that's the situation I was in. If I was going to shoot, I had to figure out how to shoot off a 23.5-inch wobbly bipods and I was going to have to learn MOA and mill and have to learn all these things about ballistics that there's as much bad information as there is good on any given day. I didn't have social media, and so I just started reading books and things like that, and just improving as best I could. And then a buddy of mine said, "You need to go to a match," and I was like, "Are you kidding? I'm not going to go to a match." And I went to a match, and I fell completely head over heels in love with the match environment. I was terrible. Didn't come in last, which was my goal. But I was, I'd have found something that was pushing me in a place I had never gone, which was facing that stress of shooting in a match, that high pressure environment. I couldn't simulate that. I've been through more things in my life, because I had to, than most people will ever encounter, but I had never really simulated that stress environment, and I found something new to push myself to. And so I just fell in love with matches. I started attending matches, and ended up going down to Georgia and meeting Chris, and I'd shot a couple before then. I'd shot a couple GBA matches, 1 mile matches. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today. Almost entirely self-taught, probably bad habits all over the place. Reloading, I grew up on a reloader with my dad, but I didn't ever really learn a whole lot about how he reloaded. And but I was quite young. It was just one of my favorite things to do was prep his brass, which now I have small kids, and I really like them prepping my brass because I don't like prepping brass. So if I could get them to decarb in a barrel, then I'd really be happy. But anyway, I just have a passion for it. And I have a lot of passions in life, but one of the issues I found is I accomplish something and then I kind of get bored and need to move on because it's kind of overcome. This is a sport I haven't even come close to overcoming. And that's probably why it keeps me coming back. And I started posting on social media, and people from all over the world were sending me messages I couldn't have ever dreamed I would get. I just got one about 3 weeks ago about a video I put out that a guy said the single moment changed his entire life. And I don't know him from anywhere. I had a guy in Afghanistan come off a mission and tell me his feet were falling off from the mission he had been on for 14 days. And he watched my video and didn't care anymore about his own blight. And I'm just like, wow, I can't compare to that. I have no paradigm for what he had gone through for 14 days. But something he saw gave him encouragement. And so I have countless amounts of video or messages like that from all over the world, and people I'd probably never meet, who were inspired by watching something I've done or learned something that I've taught them. Hopefully no bad habits, but and so that's why I'm really doing this. I love to shoot, but I would shoot with Chris and Bump and the guys, and nobody'd ever see me. That would be my preference. But I really feel that I can do a lot of good with the struggles that I've gone through, and it kind of makes them that much more important. They had a purpose, they had a reason, and I just can't say enough about whatever your max limit is, whatever your 110% is, you probably got another 40 and you don't even know it. And and maybe 40 is an understatement. I mean, I've done things that are just physically impossible without arms, and don't even know how. So I lean on my faith a lot to really give me that strength. I don't talk about that a whole lot, but at the same time, every time you overcome something or accomplish something, you go to 115, 120, and it becomes 100, it becomes 90, it becomes 80, and for long, stuff that you never could do before is now 50% energy. It just becomes the status quo. And, even the chainsaws. I mean, I live in a woods. It's 5 acres. I've got hundreds of trees because I didn't really clear it as much as that. But if one blows across my driveway, do I pick up the phone and call somebody for help, or do I just pay $1,200 to have a tree sawed up, or do I just buy a $400 chainsaw and move it out of my way? So that was basically how I started with a chainsaw, and then I found another great passion. I just love to saw wood, but I love trees. Absolutely. I love trees. Hate grass. I wish the world would just kill all the grass, plant concrete and trees. But anyway, I know a lot of people love their grass, so that's between them and the grass, not me. But I do love to saw trees, and it was something that at first it was just something to overcome, but then it became kind of the status quo now. I'll just go out and saw up the tree. And I have to be careful not to become complacent in a situation like that, because I have done it quite a bit, and you can lose respect for the saw. And same with the gun. You can lose respect for the gun or lose respect for the fire or whatever it might be. But at the same time, it's just another challenge. And right now, the challenge I have is to keep getting better and hopefully move up the board in the matches that I can attend. And I've made a lot of mistakes because I've listened to the wrong people, bought the wrong stuff. You know, we've all done that about 4 or 5 times, I think, maybe. And not Chris, he's perfect, but you know, you keep trying to just improve. And because there's really no reason I just don't have any other reason to do anything other than to improve. I don't want to wake up one day and be less than I was yesterday. I'm going to get old in the first place, so then I'm going to lose some of my abilities. So that's bad enough. But if I can slow that pace down mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it might be, then why not do that? It takes absolutely no effort, in my opinion, to control time. And time is the one thing that nobody ever has. And yet time is the only thing we actually control. I really believe that. And it's just a matter of priority. You find yourself one day, and this COVID-19 thing, I think, has woke a lot of people up. I was listening to some people this morning on a podcast going, I don't know that I want to go back to the life I had before because it was so hectic. And now they woke up and went, wow, I'm really enjoying some of the stuff I'm doing. And so that's kind of how I lived before and continue. You manage time the way you want to manage it. You learn what you want to learn, and you improve and get better, whether that's reading or watching a podcast, or in my case, trying to figure out how to load and shoot, better than 2,000 yards. So, or whatever work I'm doing or anything of that nature. So, I own a small gun store with my brother and I. It's a small gun range. We started in 2012, and then we bought a log cabin and gutted it and turned it into a gun store. And it's just 3 gun. That's where we had our 22 ELR match 2 days ago. Because there's a farm field behind it, we were able to get out to 600. And then I also manage heavy highway. We build roads, bridges, highways, underground utilities, all mainline for municipalities, cities, and that sort of thing. So when we're on a job, it's 12 to 15 months. And I can manage up to 3 to 15 of those on any given day. That's my day job. And then my dad and my brother and I farm as well. So that's kind of a little snapshot about me. And the forward forever, backward never is just basically what you heard. It's just, why ever go backward? I just don't understand that. I don't have a paradigm for being good at something today and being bad at it tomorrow, or being less than I was today. Some skills, especially shooting, you have to keep up with, even reloading, because you forget. You just forget things that you learned, and you have to write all this stuff down. And one of the things I learned from Chris is just meticulous notes. I thought I kept meticulous notes until I saw people who kept meticulous notes. But if I don't go back and do that, then I can't remember in 3 months that I, reloaded 7mm this specific way and it was, accurate. I might kind of remember, but you gotta make that your priority, and you gotta be focused on picking those things in life that are a passion, and then getting better at them, and then keeping those skills at least at a break-even point. And so I'm always moving forward, always figuring out a better way to do something. Making mistakes is kind of almost my foundation. Failure is my foundation, because I've learned far more from failure than any success. My first match, I think I placed 26 out of 36, and I learned so much about myself, more about myself than I did the gun. And so that failure was a moving forward. But many people are like, you didn't fail, you showed up to the match. A lot of people don't go to matches because their egos are too big. They literally won't go to a match because they're afraid of losing. And I can understand that. But at the same time, or many things, they won't come on a podcast because they don't want to be seen in some light that they don't understand. When they look in the mirror, they see something that nobody else sees because they've made this imaginary person up in their head that does not exist. So forward forever, backward never is just about, come with me. Let's join together. Let's figure out. I mean, I love being on a team environment. Unfortunately, in shooting, I don't have a lot of team environment where I'm located. The 22 ELR match I did was almost entirely to show people what it was like to shoot further than they could dream with something as small as a 22. I prefer my 375, but that's not for everybody. So as most of us know, it takes a lot of effort to step up to some of the larger calibers. But it did. I saw people's eyes light up and how excited they were in something they had never experienced before. And that was awesome. That was awesome to get to see people challenging themselves and stepping outside of that box and doing something. And I was a facilitator of that. So in a lot of ways, I'm a facilitator of trying to help people look in the mirror and say, what paradigm do I have that's totally wrong? What do I believe I can't do that's probably totally wrong? What do I believe from somebody else that they're doing and I don't understand it, that maybe I just need to reevaluate that? And so I'm really about looking in the mirror and really paying attention to what do you see? Who do you see? Have you made that person up and that's not really who you are? You're not as good as you think you are. And then go out and fail. I mean, I'm a great encourager of trying something new and failing at it, because you're going to come out of there learning something. I mean, volumes and volumes. I have a master's and I learned far more from my business mistakes than I ever did in any of my classes. My master's thesis wasn't too bad, but at the time I wrote my master's thesis on a company I was building. So it's I kind of cheated on that one. But anyway, so there you go. Is that what you wanted?
Aaron, hopefully, I've learned, I've learned some more things about you tonight that I didn't know. I knew quite a bit, but some things I didn't know. And in reality, my background is in the Ranger Regiment. And buddy, I'm gonna tell you something. You got the heart of a warrior. And I've told you this personally. There is no more warrior in this world than Aaron Meese. I've been fortunate to get to see some pretty tough guys. But you've tapped, and I tell people this even today. You've tapped into something, my friend, that even the strongest warriors haven't found. And it's a privilege. I will say this, that for those that are listening, we've asked Aaron to come with us on our team. That's Bump, Robert Wilson, Jay Dvorsky, Jay, and myself, and Aaron Meese. It's a great honor. It's really a privilege to spend some time with Aaron. If you get to spend just 5 minutes with him, you'll be a better person for it. I know, like I said earlier, every time I come home, my significant other can tell that I've been around Aaron Meese. Aaron, you make me want to be a better person. And for that, I personally appreciate you. I'm going to unmute everybody here so that if you got questions. Okay, hold on a second. All right.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah. I'm an open book.
Go ahead, Bump. Were you going to say something?
No. I'm just listening. Go ahead.
The only thing I want to kind of pass on, Aaron, is I've had a long farm background, and I know here on the home place, I've seen a lot of people that weren't as lucky as you. And I was lucky enough to be able to follow you through Facebook and really appreciate what your goals and how you look at above and beyond stuff. I got a really good friend that works for Vortec that is in a wheelchair, but he's a mentor as well, because he doesn't let these little things set him behind, and he's a role model out there. When we were down at Indiana at Camp Atterbury this summer shooting the Nationals ELR, when you were there, my best friend Ed Faber, he had a chance to talk to you a little bit. He was amazed on your dedication and not letting things hold you behind. And I still remember when he got home, because he ended up finishing with the bronze medal there. He didn't care about it. He just wanted to share the experience with his wife when he got home about how you were such an inspiration to everybody else. Don't let things hold you behind. So just want to say thank you for that, because you are phenomenal.
Yeah.
We've asked Aaron to, Aaron has filled out his King of 2 Mile application. I certainly believe he deserves to be there. I really do. I've gotten a spot for Aaron on the 2 matches. The third one was a little bit more difficult. It seemed to be a little bit hectic, but I hope he gets in. And I would not be. It would be an awesome opportunity to go to the King 2 Mile line with Aaron Macy. I mean it with all my heart.
Well, I appreciate that. I do. I get it.
Well,
What else?
anybody questions? I'm gonna try to put this on. It is recording. I'm gonna try to put it on that YouTube channel the best I can. This upcoming Thursday, we've got Zero Compromise, and then we got John Baker next Monday. And please go follow Aaron. Please go follow Aaron on his Facebook page, Instagram, and if you get a chance, spend just a few minutes with Aaron. You'll be better for it, I promise you. Anybody else?
Is Jay
Dan?
talking?
Dan, you got anything?
No, I'm
Is Jay-
dumbfounded by that story.
Pretty special dude. Pretty special dude, man. They don't make them like that anymore.
Nope.
So it's
I'm especially, I cringe every time I see the post where he's running a chainsaw.
oh yeah.
I run a chainsaw plenty in my days, and it's easy to get complacent, like you said, and way too easy to get dead.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah.
Dale, just one thing. Going to piggyback off of what Jeff said. When I was at Arena, I think it was last year. I got the privilege of taking a video of you while you were shooting, and much similar to his friend's story. I came home and I was like, I don't care about the match. Look what this guy does.
Yeah.
And I travel. I'm a industrial continuous improvement guy, kind of a reliability guy. And about 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in a plant and everybody's complaining, right? They have an excuse for, why their equipment's not operating properly, and it's this and it's that. And it just made me mad. And I pulled out my phone and I was like, y'all shut up for a minute and watch this. And I just showed them that video and I was like, I am tired of hearing why we can't do stuff. I didn't know Aaron, at the time at all. And like, this guy has zero excuses. Look what he's doing. And, cut it out and let's go to work. And the whole mood in the room just changed instantly, right? But anyway, you inspire a lot of people, including myself. So, thank you for that. And if you want, you'll send me your address. I'll send you a honorary Georgia cap so that when you shoot with Chris, you can get images about that.
Yeah, there you go.
You run off with the power of the
Dale, this for you, buddy.
I do appreciate
Aaron
all.
would look good with a G up here, man.
I appreciate you guys saying that. I don't get. Ironically, a lot of people don't tell me that. Sometimes you wonder. Nice to hear that. A lot of people don't know what to say. And like I said, I'm an open book, and as much as I can be, because I've kind of dedicated my purpose. First I want to, but I also know that in just being there, in a lot of ways, I am impacting people's lives in a way. So I've been fortunate that I get to do something that I'm absolutely passionate about, while at the same time helping people on their own capability, or at least in this case. So it isn't, it's hard for me because I am doing something I enjoy. Hopefully I can keep moving up the board. I appreciate all the kind words and even the posts, and you guys like things and things of that nature. It does take a lot of effort to do things, but it's worth it when you hear positive stories. It also, I enjoy hanging out with people like that. There's a great passion in ELR, passion that I haven't seen in really many areas of life, and the community is just outstanding. And I've been fortunate to not yet be bridged, don't communicate with me. And so I just really like the community a lot, and found almost just a group of people that I just are always pushing that envelope, looking for perfection and learning something new. And so I found really a community enjoy in my videos beyond that, because we aren't that big of a reality, even worldwide. But I do appreciate it.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Well, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing this with us.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you.
Well,
Thank
I've got two
you.
things, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead. No problem,
First
Jay.
of all, King of 2 Mile, if I get in this year, I have a TBD right now as my spotter. So Aaron, I definitely want to have you on as my spotter this year if possible. As Chris mentioned, it's great to have you on our team. So I've already got a spot for you there. Second of all, though, since meeting you, I'm a little bit confused in some ways, and that is when at a match, as an example, and I'm watching, you're very self-sufficient, and I know you don't want help doing things, but I don't want to be rude and not help you either, because if it's even one of my teammates who's shooting and coming off the line, we help them carry their things off the line, because that's what we do as a team. So what's the line? What's the boundary there for you? I just want you to be like one of the guys, but I don't want you to be taking offense at what we do, or the other way around. I don't want to be rude either.
That is
How
probably
do we do that?
That's the best anyone can ask, because so a lot of people in similar situations, we become so self-sufficient that we can become off rude almost, in that we don't want to help us. But the sad reality is, and a lot of people don't understand this either, but human nature is, and when you are on your own, you have asked people for help early on and they were unreliable, and so you became almost 100% self. And so it comes off as I don't need help, but it's really just the procedure that I go through to get to the line. The way I hold the gun, the way I do this, the way I do that. If that gets disrupted, something might occur that I might not make it to the line. So you build this almost wall around yourself of, and this is an interesting, so when I was single, I'm married. When I was single, I would do recon on dates before I went on the date. So I had the entire layout planned from the very beginning to the end so that nothing could disrupt me accomplishing that goal. I would do recon on grocery stores. I would do recon everywhere I went before I went, and I would know. So when I started shooting matches, there's no recon. You're just literally thinking on the fly. So I am by no means, if I've come off in any way to anybody that I didn't want help, I didn't mean it. I don't actually take offense at all. It's just you have like 10 steps in your mind and you want to accomplish those 10 steps, because if you get out of order, you might drop your gun, you might fail it, you might not make it. And so it's really a mindset that comes off as I don't want help. And then number two, a lot of people have unfortunately probably let you down or me down and not been there. And you figure it out, or at least I figured it out. You have two choices in life. You either figure it out or you go crawl in a hole and wait on somebody to bail you out. And I'm not the bail you out type. I'm the figure it out. So you're by all means, I don't know any different. So if I'm coming to the line, I just take everything with me. I've already planned it out in my head. If somebody's going to help me like they would anybody else, I'm actually unaware that they would or would not. It's just been, when I shoot alone almost every week. So I take everything to the line, my own line, entirely by myself. So to me, it's no different in a match. But, Chris would help me, help me, and, people at the RX help me. And I have no problem, and I'm not offended at all. So asking, by all means, or just doing. I'm there to help you as much as I can as well. Chris and I have had lots of problems, things, and muddy matches and things of that nature. So, you do what you got to do for the team. And that's why I love the environment. So by all means, I know sometimes in a person in my situation, they get offended when you ask. That is them still carrying that, burden of insecurity. I don't really have that, or I doubt I would have ever been able to get to my first match, to be honest with you. Matches are just unique, and people that are much better shots than me won't go because they're scared of losing. And, I went, and I don't even know why. I just went and I enjoyed it. And by all means, you're welcome to help me. I don't know all the rules. I know some matches you're not allowed to touch other people's guns and, blah, 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 whatever. But I live by the mantra, just ask. And if it offends, you have a choice to take offense. Okay? You don't have to take offense when somebody is offending you. I'm not normally very offended. And also, another word of encouragement to all of you, asking questions and not assuming that a person can or can't do something is very valuable. And in my case, you're all welcome to ask me anything instead of assuming I can or cannot. I've been fortunate to be able to physically and just mentally have the skills to do a lot of things, but a lot of people don't even think I can drive, and they don't even ask. They just assume. And when they assume, it's like you have this big elephant in the room and you didn't even know it was in the room. And they're making all these assumptions about what you cannot do. And, you don't even know they're making assumptions, but it makes the relationship just totally full of, faith and their own analogy. And so part of the videos, the reason that I do the videos is I want to shatter people's paradigms. And I said this in one of my videos when I had this troll come at me in one of my posts about how I use my feet and all this other stuff. But, it's I'm here to shatter people's paradigms so that they just look through the glass that was tinted on their side and see the whole world is out there, and you got so much opportunity and so much color in life if you allow yourself to see it.
We were at a match, I guess it was maybe a couple of years ago. We had a little Aaron, we get a laugh at this now. We had I don't know what is it, stuck piece of brass or whatever. Aaron takes his prosthetic arm and he just starts smacking the living hell out of his rifle. And I look around at him and I said, "What in the hell are you doing?" He said, "Oh, just put some frog lube on it. Let's keep going." He is smacking it. There it is. Aaron and I.
Frog lube and Tennessee Shine. Don't go air without it.
We were on the line and he just smacking that rifle with his. And I'm just thinking, what? I didn't know what to really say, but I was like, "What the hell are you doing, dude?" But,
and I bent it permanently.
Yeah. So.
But you got to do what you got to do, and that was, Chris has written it for me, and we dug in and made that work. Kept moving forward. So.
You certainly, Aaron. I have a saying that I use sometimes when people are having trouble. Bump and I've talked about it. And I said, sometimes we just got to dig it out of the dirt. Buddy, you're the king of digging it out of the dirt. And I mean that with the ultimate respect for you personally. So, anybody else?
Yeah, keep in mind, Aaron, if next match we're at together, if you need any help, I'll be more than happy to reach over and adjust your scope for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's why I should not let anyone touch anything. You guys are out there. Or wait, I'm going to blame the time I fail on that. Somebody must have I like that. I'm gonna tell Bump that next time. Somebody turned my dials. That's the reason I didn't do well.
That's a good excuse. I've used it before. Someone must have touched it. I'm a whole turnout.
Aaron, you won't have any problems at the King of 2 Mile. None of those rules are going to affect you. Yeah, you can. Once we get you down on the line, you're going to be the only one that can touch it. But you've done that with me. You and I spotting and shooting together. You'll do just fine. You're not going to have any issues whatsoever. And I just just drive it like you stole it, buddy. That's all we ask.
Yep, I'll do my best. Whatever that is.
I think we get to the end here, so I'm going to.
Hey, Chris, is any?
Who?
Just real quick, is anybody going to film the King of 2 Mile like they did back in 17?
No.
No. Okay.
No. I don't think. There was some. I know that they wanted to do it, but there were a lot of issues. I think with this. I don't know. I don't overspeak my bounds since we're recording this, but I'll be happy to speak to you privately about what I've heard. But
Okay.
I don't foresee that happening again.
Okay. No problem.
Anybody else? We got who? If you've got any ideas about who you want on here, we've got 22 people on here this evening. I think that's pretty cool for our second week. Going forward, we're going to be bringing on some pretty cool people. But I tell you, this is going to be pretty hard to top here. I think it's pretty hard to top. If you've got any suggestions, please don't hesitate to send them our way. Okay.
Hey, Chris, one thing real quick. Shout out. I didn't see Joe Burdick on here, but it's his birthday. I know he's in the health profession, so
Yeah.
I'm sure his life is pretty hectic right now. So thoughts for him.
Next matchup, I guess, is probably ELR styles. Probably going to be the earliest. I know that we're going to be at. It's probably May at this point. But I think you're going to start seeing some schedule changes coming pretty soon. So,
has anybody heard anything about the World's Longest Shot Challenge? Is that still
I don't know.
being planned as far as you know?
Last I knew, it was scheduled to go off in Raton, but I don't know when at this point.
I think the next one.
Last week of July, 27, 8, and 9.
Yeah, I got plenty of time for that.
His current schedule.
I think we're going to head to Raton in May for Randy Powell's event. We're going to try to be in Spear Point in April. I don't even know if they're going to have it. My rifle's not ready yet, so it's going to be a little hard for me to perform that miracle. But I think May is unfortunately when most of us will all be out together here next. Anything else?
Well, Chris, thanks for sharing, and Aaron, or Chris, thanks for putting this on, and Aaron, really for sharing. You may not want the accolades, but your story is truly inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you.
And down at the bottom, you'll see Linus Ridge. Linus is from Great Britain, United Kingdom. It's almost 3 a.m. there.
Say, a little late for you, huh? Maybe early.
Thank you for staying.
We're going to have some UK people from the United Kingdom on here in a couple of weeks. That's going to be pretty interesting. And so we'll keep growing this and keep getting, try to get it, make this better and better each week as best we can. Okay. Anybody else? You good?
All right. Thank you. Have a good one,
Everybody.
Thanks, See y'all.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.